Have you ever felt a memory return so clearly that it felt more real than the present? Now imagine this. Every time a clock ticked backwards, your forgotten past quietly came back to life inside your mind, and you could not stop it. His name was Elliot Carter. He lived alone in a small, quiet apartment where the walls were thin and time felt heavy. The kind of place where silence wasn't peaceful, only loud in its own strange way. Above the kitchen doorway hung an old wall clock. Faded numbers, scratched glass, a soft ticking sound that never stopped. Tick, tick, tick. Until one night, it didn't. It ticked backwards. Just once. A soft, unnatural sound. Like a breath being taken in reverse. And suddenly, Elliot remembered something he had forgotten. A childhood kitchen. A cracked blue cup. And his mother's hands, shaking slightly as she poured warm milk. The memory hit him not like a picture, but like a feeling. Warm, close, and painfully gentle. He stood frozen in the doorway. The clock returned to normal. Tick, tick, tick. He tried to brush it away. Just stress, he thought. Just the brain trying to be strange in quiet places. But the next evening, it happened again. One backward tick, and another memory bloomed inside him. A rainy schoolyard. A girl with a yellow umbrella. Her name was Lila. A smile that felt too real to be made up. A laugh he somehow remembered without remembering why he had forgotten. He had not thought of her in years. It scared him, not because the memories were bad, but because they felt buried. Buried on purpose. From that day on, Elliot began to listen to the clock. Every night, every quiet evening, and at unpredictable moments. Tick, wreck, a backward movement, and with it, more fragments of forgotten life. A hospital hallway that smelled like soap and fear. A hand signing papers he didn't remember reading. A room painted white that felt more like a goodbye than a place. His chest tightened when those memories came, because they were not soft. They were heavy, and they were real. He was not alone in this story. Next door lived Mr. Harold, an elderly man who watered the same 2 dying plants every morning. A man who smiled often but carried a shadow in his eyes. Elliot didn't tell him about the clock. He didn't tell anyone. He simply started visiting more. Standing quietly at his own doorway, watching Harold move slowly across the narrow hallway. Time felt different now. Not like a line, more like a loop with cracks in it. One night, the clock ticked backwards 3 times in a row. Tick, wreck, tick, wreck, tick, wreck. And the memory that came was not gentle. A funeral, gray skies, black umbrellas, and the face in the photograph at the front of the room was Lila's. That was when Elliot understood. These were not random memories. These were the things his mind had tried to hide to let him keep living. Grief he had locked away. Pain he had sealed off. Days he had erased to survive the rest. The clock was not haunting him. It was undoing his own forgetting. And suddenly, he didn't fear it as much. One quiet evening, Harold didn't come out to water his plants. The hallway felt emptier. That night, the clock ticked backwards again. He saw Harold. Not old, not bent by time, but younger, laughing. They had met years ago, had coffee together, shared silence more than words. And then another memory. Harold's door half open. An ambulance light washing the walls in blue. Elliot hadn't imagined the loneliness next door. He had lived beside it. Time kept moving. The clock kept ticking forward. Mostly, but sometimes. Rewind. Memory. Feeling. Truth. One final night, after weeks of backward ticks and returning fragments, the clock stopped completely. No forward. No backward. Just silence. And the memory that came was not about loss. Not about pain. It was about himself. A young man sitting alone in a small room, telling himself it was easier to forget than to feel. That memory hurt the most. Not because it was tragic, but because it was honest. Elliot lifted his eyes to the lifeless clock. It didn't need to move anymore. It had done its job. Time didn't go backwards to punish him. It went backwards to give him back the parts of himself he had buried to keep breathing. And in that quiet room, with the city breathing softly outside, Elliot felt something unfamiliar. Peace. Not the kind that comes from forgetting, but the kind that comes from remembering and surviving. The clock stayed still after that. But Elliot did not feel stuck. Because some things are not meant to be erased. Some memories are not weights. They are proof. Proof that we lived, that we loved, that we lost, and still remained. And sometimes, he thought, time doesn't move backwards to trap us. It moves gently, quietly, to bring us home.